Hello everyone, I am here to show how I make my leaf stamps. These leaf stamps I really like because each one is unique. Even if you're trying to make the same type of leaf each time, they always turn out just a little bit differently. And you can use paint with them and ink pads and outline them, and that even makes them more different from each time you use them. So I would like to show how I make them. I make them in different sizes. I make them with different patterns on them. And so I will show how I do that. I like to use the thin foam sheets. I find these little foam sheets at Walmart in a pack of 32 for under $1. I think it's 98 cents or something like that. And they are really, really thin, but they work perfectly well. You can use the thicker ones, the ones with the sticky back, if you like to. I don't necessarily like to use the thick foam sheets myself because my hand gets really tired drawing into the foam. There's a lot of thickness to get through with a pen, and it just tires me out if I'm doing more than one. So what I do, let me show how I actually make the stamp itself. I do make a little pattern for the shape of the leaf. And as you can see from all the different leaves that I have here, I make them different sizes. Some of them are fat, some of them are a little skinnier and longer. So they're all really different. And so what I do to get a shape of a leaf is I kind of draw out maybe a size that I would like. I'm going to make one a fairly large so that you can see it. That's about the size that I want. And I am just going to cut that piece of paper. I'm just making the pattern, so it doesn't really matter what it is. I am just going to make that piece of paper the size of that I want my leaf stamp to be. The finished leaf stamp will be the size of this paper. So I fold it in half the long way, and then I fold it in half the short way. So you've got your piece of paper cut in or folded into a little 4 thing. My leaf shapes don't have a stem. They're kind of stylized. You can do just one fold and make your leaf shape that way, or fold it the short way to make a stem so that both ends are a little bit different. What I mean by that is if you've got a piece of paper and you want your leaf to have a stem, fold it the short way and cut your leaf so that it's got a pointy end and a leafy end, or a stem-like end, so it's more stylized, and then you have the shape that you want. I like a more geometric shape. I like everything to be equal, so I fold my paper in 4s. And then I go from that folded edge and I kind of make a leaf type shape. Like I said, my leaves do not have stems. They're not real leaves. But that way this is my leaf shape pattern. Okay? And then what I do is I take my fun foam and just any kind of, I like a rollerball pen. I use the Bic crystals quite a bit. Any pen will do. and I put my pattern on the foam sheet, and I am careful about not indenting the foam at all because that will show up in your stamp. So I carefully draw around my pattern. And I kind of go around a second time and I press into the foam around that pattern. And that gives me an idea of where to cut it. So I press pretty hard into the foam like that. Okay, so now I've got another pattern for another leaf. So there is my leaf. Now usually I cut out that leaf on the line that I just created, and it's nicely indented so it's really easy to cut out smoothly. And I have the basic part of my leaf. I like to put a line down the center. I don't always. Sometimes I just put lines across. Sometimes I put them lines on the side. But usually, for the most part, I put a line down the center like a leaf would have its main vein from the stem down the center. But not always. Sometimes I do other things. So I am just going to draw a line somewhere down the center, and keep in mind that every line that you draw, you're indenting the foam, and when you indent the foam, this is a place where the ink will not reach, so that you're doing kind of a mirror image of a leaf. If you wanted that center to be raised so that it would catch the ink, you would have to put the line on either side. And then I kind of I draw lines into my leaf shape for the pattern. I usually make lines and I go back and forth a few times to make sure that that line is very well indented so that it doesn't catch ink. And I do sometimes use different widths of pens so I can get a finer line sometimes and sometimes a thicker line. When you get it going and you start making these, you kind of want to make some of them a little bit different, so you can use different pens to get different thicknesses of lines and just to have some fun with it. So I am making this one with lines like that, and I'm going to go over those lines, make sure they're well indented. So they won't catch any ink. All right. And then on the other side, I like circles, so I'm going to make some little dots in kind of a little pattern. And every place that I indent the foam is a place where the ink will not touch. Kind of have to think backwards, because what you're doing, what you're drawing into the foam is going to be exactly the opposite of what is going to catch the ink. And I will show you what I mean by that in a sec. So there's my new leaf, all ready to go. Now, if you have access to little wooden blocks or styrofoam pieces or a firm foam of some sort, like a stamp block, you can glue these onto a structure like a stamp. I do not have access to that kind of thing. And it also, when you're gluing a bunch of blocks together, you are creating a lot of bulk with all these stamps. I've got a ton of them. If they were all on blocks, it would take up quite a bit of space. What I have found that I like doing, and also instead of a piece of wood or something, you can glue them on a piece of plastic. This is a lid. You can cut apart, milk bottles or water bottles, and get the flat pieces of plastic and glue them onto a piece of plastic so that it has a little bit firmness. But what I found that I like the best is to get the removable double-sided tape and I use acrylic block. I just take a little piece of that tape, put it on my stamp or the block. Got a little piece of paper there. I usually put it on the stamp itself, just a little piece, and then I put it on the block. This gives me a handle to hang on to, and I can remove that stamp. I put my stamps in a little plastic container so I can have all my leaf stamps together, all my circle stamps together, and they're not taking up too much space, so I can have a ton of them without having to worry about where I'm going to put them all. So I will take that off. Sometimes the tape stays on the leaf. I just put that in there, and sometimes it stays on the block, so I will reuse that tape over and over and over again, and I'm not buying more tape. So let's test this out. Going back to if you use a wood block or a piece of styrofoam or a piece of plastic or something, I do cut the plastic into the shape that I want it. I just use a tacky glue, Eileen's glue. I've got the liquid Elmer's Extreme. I just put that glue on there and I let it set overnight to make sure that it's well glued down and well set before I stamp anything with it. So just so you know. I have also used pieces of cardboard with a little electrical tape handle, but I find that the cardboard, when you're pressing it down on your paper, after a while the cardboard it gets smashed. It gets thin. It doesn't work very well. I don't like that one too much anymore. I don't really use that anymore. So I really like the being able just to put them on a block and then take them off the block again. So just some options for anyone trying to do this. This is, let's see if I can find a page that needs some stuff. Here, we'll put some more leaf shapes on this page. Let's test out the new leaf. Let's ink it up real good so we can see what it looks like. And as you can see, the ink is getting all those places that didn't get drawn into. So you've got a mirror image of what you started with. Let's see what it looks like. I'm going to put a little thing underneath here so we can get a clear idea. And that is what you're left with. All those places that you drew lines into do not make contact with the ink pad. So any lines that you draw into that foam, it's indented enough to make a mark. And that's how I make the leaf stamp. This one's a pretty cool one. It's a little different than the others. So that is the leaf stamp tutorial in a nutshell. Thanks for watching.